Good day! For today's video, we are going to discuss the 7 environmental principles. But before we start our discussion, let me introduce myself first. By the way, my name is Renelyn Kiranti from BE Ed 1. And now, let's start our discussion.
Environmental principle is a legal and political frameworks that aim to minimize the effects of human activity on the environment. So here is the 7 environmental principle. Number 1, nature knows best. All forms of life are important. Everything is changes. Everything must go somewhere. Everything is connected to everything else. Ours is a finite earth. And then the last, nature is beautiful and we are stewards of God's creation. And now, let's discuss or explain these 7 environmental principles in one by one. The first of the 7 environmental principle is the nature knows best. This principle is the most basic and in fact encompasses all the others. Humans have to understand nature and have to abide by the rules nature dictates. In essence, one must not go against the natural processes if one would like to ensure a continuous, steady supply of resources. One natural process that needs serious attention is the nutrient cycling. In nature, nutrients pass from the environment to the organism and then back to the environment. Any disruption in the cycle can bring about imbalance. Example, kanang mga sagbot sa inyong kaingin, inyo nang gisunog nga instead ana inyo ra siyang pasagdaan nga malata. So sa inyong pagsunog ana, there is the possibilities that most of the organic compounds are lost. The second environmental principle is that all forms of life are important. Each organism plays a fundamental role in nature, since such occupational or functional position, otherwise known as niche, cannot be simultaneously occupied by more than one species. It is apparent that all living things must be considered as invaluable in the maintenance of homeostasis in the ecosystem. Example, kanang mga alibang-bang ubang insekto pa na diha wala tay katungod-an nga mo destroy silang kinabuhi or kanang patio nato sila kaysa ginaingon na nga all forms of life are important. So importante pud ay na sila, so wala tay katungod nga patyon sila. The third environmental principle is everything changes. It is said that the only permanent thing is change. As a general classification, change may be linear, cyclical, or random. An example of linear change is evolution of species, which has brought about higher and more complex types of organisms. Cyclical change may be exemplified by season and the rhythm in floral and final life stages that go with the season. Example, everything changes. Kabantay mo karon is ang atong climate is init na siya kaayo compared sa una. Tungod ra po na sa mga tao nga di sila kabalo mo. Kuan patakaan silang sunog sa mga like mga plastics ing ana. The fourth environmental principle is everything must go somewhere. When a piece of paper is thrown away, it disappears from sight, but it does not cease to exist. It ends up elsewhere. Gases released in smokestacks may disperse, but it will end up as components of the atmosphere or brought down by winds. Since wastes are not lost to oblivion and even goes back to one's own backyard in some other forms, It is important that one becomes aware of the different types of wastes, whether they are hazardous or not. So, kinahanglan gyud kung maglabay ka sa basura in a proper way gyud, di kay pataka ra taglabay bisag asa ra kay mo po na siya hinungdan nga magka sa pagbaha kay nasampungan na ang mga irrigation ug uban pa. So, the fifth environmental principle is everything is connected to everything else. This principle is best exemplified by the concept of the ecosystem. In an ecosystem, all biotic and amniotic components interact with each other to ensure that the system is perpetuated. Any outside interface may result in an imbalance in the deterioration of the system. Example, in a lake ecosystem, the organisms are linked to one another through their feeding habit or level and or also dependent in other physicochemical factors in the lake. At the same time, the physicochemical factors in the lake are influenced by the terrestrial environment that surrounds it. The sixth environmental principle is ours is a finite earth. The earth resources can be classified as either renewable or non-renewable. Renewable resources are those that can easily be replenished by natural cycles, while non-renewable resources are those that cannot be replenished through natural cycles. Although renewable resources can be replenished, it is important to note that these are renewable only as long as they are not overused nor destroyed from such factors such as pollution. To ensure that these resources will be continually replenished, it is essential to know how much of our resource can be consumed at a given time to balance the rate of exploitation with the rate of replenishment rather. And then the last seven environmental principle is that nature is beautiful and we are stewards of God's creation. Among all creatures, humans are the only ones made in God's image and have been given the right to have dominion over all His creations. Being the most intelligent and gifted with reason, humans are capable of manipulating creation to their own advantages. So this principle is inherent in all religious and tribal beliefs, like teaching of Christianity, Buddhism, and Islam enjoin everyone to respect all life and other and order of the natures. So we are now aware of our environment, environmental issues, and ways by which we can initiate to save our environment. All of us must take a pledge to save the environment so that our kids can live a healthy and peaceful life in the future. And that's would be all. I hope you learned something new from me.